Hello and welcome to the local campaign, helping voters make an informed choice in the upcoming municipal elections. My name is Kim Wilson and I'll be your host for this evening. Tonight we have the Waterloo Mayoral debate. There are three candidates in this race and they are incumbent Dave Jaworski, Kelly Stice, and Chris Kaletnik. Speaking order was drawn before the debate, and so we'll kick it off with opening remarks from Chris Kaletnik.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Chris Kaletnik, and I'm running for mayor of Waterloo. With that being said, the last 4 years have been a colossal and epic failure. The Dave Jaworski experiment has failed. From crippling and suffocating tax increases, the highest ever at 13% in one single term of council, to the LRT debacle, to Dave Jaworski accepting a salary increase when so many of our uptown businesses were struggling to survive. Now, I'm the only candidate here on stage tonight willing to reduce their city salary by 10%. Leadership starts at the top, and we need an action-oriented mayor, not someone who's more interested in taking selfies and posting pictures of socks online. Children do that, not leaders of communities. Now, I've spoken to thousands of people, and I've knocked on thousands of doors, and they're telling me that the city's not listening. Now, my campaign is focused on actively listening. So when I'm elected on October 22nd, we're going to reduce property taxes. We're going to have an honest and transparent government. So on October 22nd, vote Chris Kaletnik. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Before we move to Kelly, I'm going to offer Dave an opportunity for a rebuttal.
Well, I think we'll have plenty of time during the next hour to cover a lot of important topics. So let's just move on.
Okay. You're up, Kelly.
Great. My name is Kelly Stice, and I'm running to be your mayor of the city of Waterloo. I am positive that Waterloo needs new leadership. I have deep roots in Waterloo. My family settled and were successful merchants running the Kunst Brewery. My grandmother was born and raised here. I'm a proud graduate of the University of Waterloo and Renison College, and my husband and I chose to raise our family here. But over the last year, my pride in Waterloo has diminished because Waterloo has lost its vibrancy, and you can see it. I have a vision for Waterloo, one that promotes civic pride, where people feel listened to and heard, and as a strong mayor, I commit to advocating for the needs of residents and businesses, and will be at the table during key and important decisions. I say this with confidence because I bring more than 16 years of municipal government experience. Currently work for the City of Kitchener, but there was a time I worked concurrently for both the City of Kitchener and the City of Waterloo under a shared services agreement. I know how things should run, and from what I have heard and seen, this city is not running well. And I know that we can be better. And again, we can be better by working together. I look forward to answering questions during this forum and letting you know who I am.
Thanks, Kelly. Dave.
Well, thank you, Rogers, for hosting this important debate, and a special thank you to viewers for becoming informed voters, which is so important. Local government has the biggest impact on our daily lives, and that's what motivated me to run for mayor. I came to Waterloo as a teenager to study at the University of Waterloo and essentially never left. Jan and I could not think of a better place to raise our family, and I'm sure more of you feel the same. In 2014, I pledged to use my 25 years of business experience, extensive volunteer record, and positive leadership to help grow Waterloo. In 2013, our economy was heading downward, with our largest employer shedding thousands of jobs. In other communities, such a major shift could define them for a generation. I committed to focus on rebuilding our prosperity. I made it a priority to get Communitech back to Waterloo, to welcome a major employer to Uptown, and to invest in company creation. Council made progress on many fronts. We made historical investments in affordable housing, solved the library funding crunch, and contributed to a new hospice near Rim Park. I also made it a priority to listen to residents. I have an open door policy for those who want to meet at City Hall. I've attended thousands of events and meetings in the community, out in the community with you. We launched an innovative, open City Hall on the internet so that you can give input on budgets and other important decisions from the comfort of your home. This was followed by many other municipalities. So what do the next 4 years look like? Improving transit to Toronto, attracting jobs for all, and making sure our city is affordable and vibrant. And that's important for me in a second mandate. I hope I've earned your trust over the past 4 years, and I look forward to an engaging debate.
Thanks, Dave. We're going to move now to our question and answer portion, and I'm going to hand it over to Adam from the Waterloo Chronicle Reporter.
Waterloo City Council on Monday night approved a 24-story, 321-unit development at 70 King Street North. Do you agree with this decision?
We're going to start with Kelly.
So I had the pleasure of attending council on Monday night and watched how that presentation and the debate and the final decision happened. And there's a couple things with the decision on Monday night. First of all, what was presented really doesn't fit with the vision for our uptown. Our uptown has a clear vision. We have low-rise buildings where there is a sense of community, a sense of space. And this building just seems to tower over everything else that is in the uptown. I am not against development. We need development, but we need smart growth for our city. I think, though, the most concerning thing about Monday night was the process. As the motion was presented and it was seconded, and there was the discussion, and then it was brought forward that perhaps that what the developer had presented was not what staff had seen at all. And there were comments about, I don't know what we're voting for. Oh, well, let's just get this through. And so I worry that hasty decisions were made at the expense of the taxpayer when things weren't fully realized. There was another councillor who said, you know what, I don't know that this is worth $1 million. And so I'm worried that we are now heading down another Rim Park disaster with hasty decision making, that we're chasing a shiny object without fully vetting the process and the development as an asset for our community.
Thanks, Kelly. Dave?
Well, let's look at what we had there at that site, Adam. That's a old Canada Post Office. It's been an eyesore for many years, so we should all be pleased that somebody is taking a look at it and looking to make a better contribution to our community. And the reality is it's a spectacular contribution to our community. The land is already zoned for 25 stories and 4 stories in different parts, and the developer came up with a unique proposal that, subject to the provincial policy planning that we have in effect in Ontario, really was a great contribution to our community. It's certainly a lot of heritage in that area, and I believe that today's iconic buildings are actually tomorrow's heritage buildings. Heard many positive comments at council. We also found that many uptown businesses say this will be the kind of thing that they need to bring more people into the uptown core to live, work, and play. I've been focused on trying to get more business uptown so that people can get out shopping during lunchtime, and this will be the kind of site that will add so much vibrancy to the community and really put uptown Waterloo on the map.
Thanks, Dave. And Chris?
Yeah, so you probably see it online. If you go to the CBC website, it says that mayoral candidate is against and calls the development a monster. And that's what it is. It's out of place. It's out of touch. The community doesn't want a project like this. Now, I'm in the real estate business. I'm a commercial realtor at the end of the day, and I'm not against development or anything like that. I know that we need more housing supply on the market, but this project does not fit in uptown Waterloo. It doesn't belong there. You know, we have to have an open door policy, and we clearly don't have that at City Hall right now. You know, I've heard from a lot of people that are against this project. So I wish there would have been a little bit more consultation. I don't mind the project on site, but I don't believe that it should be so high. I wouldn't say it's gonna kill all the businesses in town, but that's gonna be the central focus. And I'm against the actual development of the site, but I just don't think it belongs in that corridor. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. So for our next question, we're going to move to the Chamber of Commerce, the KW Chamber of Commerce.
Is home ownership unaffordable for many recent graduates in Waterloo region? And secondly, what can municipal governments do to assist with the housing supply in this municipality?
And we're going to go to Dave.
Well, that is an important question all along the housing continuum. There are so many different things we need to look at, from those impacted by homelessness to even seniors who are looking to get out of their large 4-bedroom family home and move somewhere else. Really, this is something that's very important to our community, and I think that really affects us in housing supply. And that's why we need housing choice to continue to build. We can't grow onto our farmland anymore. That's something that's done because we've hit our borders, and it's the right thing to do to protect the moraine and the farmland. So what we need to do is intensify. A lot of developers are bringing on stream a lot of 1-bedroom units. Those are well suitable for new graduates. And what we've recently did in our comprehensive zoning bylaw, something unique, is following the provincial standards to allow secondary suites. So let's say, for example, you're a young couple and you have a mortgage and you want to buy a home, but you realize you can't really afford it and make ends meet. What you can do is create a proper secondary suite, which then creates more affordable housing for somebody else, yet aids you in growing into the housing market. That's something that's now available in Waterloo, and something I think hopefully people will move forward on, because we really have a great talent generator in our universities and college system, one like no other, that makes me so proud to be from Waterloo. And what we really need to do is continue creating companies, continue creating jobs, and ensure that these people can live in our community and live affordably.
Thanks. Chris.
I think at the end of the day, we're talking about postgraduates here. I think most postgraduates, they're not focusing on housing or anything like that. They're focused on actual jobs, right? So we need more jobs in the community. Obviously, they need a place to live. I know that obviously what's happening in the downtown core, more supply units are coming onto the market, so more people can stay in the Kitchener-Waterloo area. And that's a wonderful thing. But I think that postgraduates, they're not necessarily concerned with housing. They might fly off to another country, they might take a job in another country or anything like that, but I don't believe that's basically their first concern after they graduate.
Thanks, Chris. Kelly.
I've been out and I've talked to new graduates in our city, and they have said exactly that. How are they going to afford a home? Now they're stuck living at home with their parents, or they can't even afford to rent in our city. And for me, that's deeply concerning when we want to try and retain our talent, when we want to try and create a community that is new and fresh and vibrant. We have a commitment to making sure that the decisions that we make at council reflect the needs of all citizens in our city. So we need to look at things like zoning and making sure that as development applications are accepted and approved, that they meet the needs of our community. Right now, as I look through past council meetings and development reports, there's this need and this excitement about these high-end condos that are going to be sprouting up on either side of the LRT. And that isn't affordable. That isn't meeting the needs of all of our residents. That is meeting the needs of a certain segment of our community. And we need to be more inclusive. We need to make sure that we have a variety of housing opportunities, because the success and the sustainability of our community will be built on a diversity of economy. Because if you have one grouping of people, then we risk losing it all. And so the mayor and council needs to make sure that we make decisions that embrace and support diversity.
Thanks, Kelly. For our next question, we come back to Adam Jackson.
This past March represented the largest and most expensive St. Patrick's Day party on and around Ezra Avenue. Mr. Jaworski, you have established a task force that will work to at least curtail the party in the next 5 years. Do you still agree that this is the appropriate plan? If not, what is the solution to dealing with the annual party?
And we'll start with Chris.
So listen, I can give you an answer out of political convenience, and I could say, hey, listen, we're going to shut this party down in 5 years. The reality of the situation, it's nearly next to impossible to stop 20,000 people from converging on one street. That's really the honest answer at the end of the day. Now, I'm willing to listen to the community. I'm willing to listen to the schools, to Laurier and to Waterloo. And if we can somehow get an approach to basically not necessarily shut it down, because I think it's still impossible to shut it down. What I would like to see happen is that a few years ago, there used to be a section over at the Seagram Stadium, okay? And that could divert the flow of traffic, because we know that this is a very large property or party. So with that being said, it also comes down to the safety of the students and the partiers in that area. And I think that the Waterloo Regional Police and the fire department, they did a great job. They blocked the entrance of Ezra last year, because you never know if you're going to have a drunk driver or anything like that. So this really also comes down to safety. But listen, I'm going to have an open door when I'm elected. If you've got ideas to help me, basically curtail this party, I'm all ears. I'm not here to say that I've got all the answers. This is a community-based decision, and that's where I basically want to get an answer from as well.
Thanks.
So I've met with the student union executives at Laurier and at Waterloo, and we talked about this issue. We talked about unsanctioned community gatherings. I've also been out and met with residents, and graduates of Waterloo have talked about Ezra Street as a place where they partied 30 years ago. And so it's not an issue that I think is going to go away. And so we need to look at how can we embrace and support this kind of activity. And so I would be looking to legitimize this. And we have a great example and a great model to follow with our Oktoberfest events. Those are big, large parties where they are legitimized, because what's important for me is that we create a space where there is safety for students and safety for our community. And what I want to do is work hand in hand with students and community to look at how do we legitimize that? What does that mean? Where do the tents go? How do we create access? How do we make sure that we have enough resources on site? And perhaps we can help to generate some revenue from this so that we can enhance and support the businesses in our city and help to offset some of the costs that occur when you run big events or when big events like this happen, such as Ezra Street and such as Oktoberfest.
Thanks,
Well,
Kelly.
thank you very much, Adam, for that question. St. Patrick's Day as a party has grown to a size that is completely unacceptable to the community. I believe it's unacceptable to the student unions, it's unacceptable to all of us who live here. And if you look at the universities, it doesn't match our city values and it doesn't match our student values. So something needs to be done, but all ideas are on the table at this point. I'm really proud how EMS really took charge, and Police Chief Brian Larkin did, in terms of setting up a command center, making sure this runs well. Nobody was seriously injured yet again. We can be thankful for that, and that's really thanks to our police, fire, and paramedics coming together. Now, the big problem with that, when they come together, is that there's lots of fees with that, and that's something that we need to take seriously and can't continue to grow. I happened to be in the command center that day because I take a hands-on approach that morning as we were watching what was going on, and I happened to hear that there was potentially a serious injury or a fatality, and we can be thankful it wasn't at St. Patrick's Day. And that's, I think, something that keeps us up at night, keeps all citizens up at night, worried about what might happen there. And it's not a local issue. That's important to know. Everybody keeps pointing the finger at a single university, and I can tell you last year, based on charges, 34 universities students attended, or students from 34 universities attended. And that is something that's become a visitor problem and something we need to take a look at, because all the things that a certain university might be able to do here locally isn't helpful, because there are so many people coming to town, and we saw that by people parking in our parkland, all different kinds of things that were going on with respect to poor behavior from people visiting. So I struck a task force, and we have the students giving input, citizens giving input, staff, and I think that's the way forward to look at figuring out how we move forward with this. But at this point in time, all ideas are on the table.
Thanks, Dave. From here, we're going to go to back to the KW Chamber of Commerce.
Will you support increasing property taxes to pay for service delivery? Secondly, do you support increasing business property taxes and maintaining residential at their current level?
And we're going to start with Kelly.
So the idea of raising taxes is not something that I'm hearing residents interested or excited about. What I'm hearing from residents is that they are nervous. Household debt is on the rise. They are finding it more and more difficult to pay for living in the city of Waterloo. And I think we actually need to do the opposite. We really need to take a look at what are we asking our residents for and what is the service that we are providing. And I don't think that we've done a good job of that. I think that we need to be more connected and more engaged with our community around what the service delivery is that they want and what is needed. I also believe we need to do an overhaul of our budget, because we are, certainly residents in Waterloo pay a lot in taxes, and I'm not sure that we see the results that we need out of those tax increases. But again, the job of the mayor is to listen to the people. And at the end of the day, if people are saying that they want an increase in service delivery and are willing to pay it in taxes, then that is what we need to go for. But I want to make sure that we've heard from each and every citizen, and that the decisions that we make are ones that can affect people more broadly and not just specific and individual issues.
Thanks, Kelly. Dave?
Well, thank you very much for that question, Art. That's an important thing with respect to services that are delivered in our community. I think one thing that really disappoints me as mayor, and I think all citizens, is that 92% of tax dollars actually leave our community for the federal and provincial government. So I view it as job one to try and repatriate those funds through grants and things like that. What we've been able to do with stormwater is attract over $4 million in investment from the federal and provincial government, and that's thanks to having our city hall with both the MP and MPP in it. I think we're the only city hall in Canada that has the good fortune of having all levels of government, one-stop shopping. So I think after that, the next thing you look at is efficiencies, and we did that with LED lighting. We did that with the street lights, saving over $400,000. We retrofitted in all our buildings, saving another $400,000, and those go straight to the bottom line and can be looked at either for investing into the future, returning to the taxpayer, or other services. Another thing is that growth eases the burden on the taxpayer, and Waterloo has been very fortunate. Last year, thanks to our finance people focusing on getting new buildings onto the tax roll, that eases the burden for everyone, and we found out that we had about 3.7% growth in our community, and that really helps out. Now, to the point of services, that is something that we looked at in this current term of council, and we really focused on three things. The library, because people said that was important to them, and we really need to fix the funding model for the library. Heritage, we hired our first ever heritage planner and doubled the number of heritage listed properties in Waterloo, something we can all be proud of. And then finally, parks and trails maintenance. That was something that over the years we really were forced, or staff were forced, to cut a little bit less grass at the park each and every time. And it looked a bit unkempt, and citizens spoke out. They also spoke out about winter maintenance of children walking to school on our trails. We were able to fix that, and we were able to move forward. In the case of
Sorry,
business.
I have to stop you there. Sorry.
No problem.
So for the next question, we're going to go to
Do I get
Adam
an
Jeff.
attempt?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry
that's
about that.
that-
Yes.
that's okay.
Sorry, Chris. Yes, go
Listen,
ahead.
at the end of the day, I don't believe in extreme tax increases. I believe in tax fairness, okay? The City of Waterloo and Regional Council, we've got a spending problem, okay? It's revenue in versus revenue out. And you look at projects like the LRT, and you know what the LRT stands for? It stands for Let's Raise Taxes, okay? This thing is gonna cost $330 million plus to the region of Waterloo. So you take a project like that, 80 to 90% of the people in this region were absolutely against it. And then you had a regional council who wouldn't even have a referendum on this topic because they were so scared that it was gonna get voted down. Now you look at the Waterloo Streetscape project, another waste of $10 million. I spoke to those business owners personally. 80 to 90% of those business owners were completely against it. And you know what the cherry on top was? We spent $25,000 for an absurd bike counter that petulant children are driving around. And when I say petulant children, these people are in their 20s and early 30s. So we have a spending problem. We waste money like no other. And when I get elected, we're gonna curb spending, okay? We can't, the trajectory that we're on right now is not sustainable. Kelly pointed this out. She said basically that there's a lot of debt load on the table for a lot of families. They're struggling to survive. And I'm hearing the cries of help when I go door knocking. They said nobody's listening to them at City Hall. And my campaign is focused on actively listening. So when I'm elected, I'm going to listen. We're going to reduce property taxes, and you're going to have a transparent mayor finally. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Now we go to Adam.
This is a timely question with Chris's last remarks there. After the completion of the $10 million streetscape project on King Street North in Uptown Waterloo, many of the cycling community were unhappy with the design of the bike lane, asking for bollards to be installed. Do you believe that there should be protected bike lanes on King Street?
And we're going to start with Dave.
Well, that is an important question. The Streetscape was actually a project that was combined with the region of Waterloo, the city of Waterloo, but the Streetscape was actually driven by the Uptown BIA, who actually helped contribute to it. It was something that the Uptown retailers really wanted after a 50-year lack of change in the Uptown. They wanted to refresh, and that's what we put together for them, with very much wider sidewalks, cycling lanes, patio scene is now evolving, and it's a really exciting atmosphere. It's something people really should come out and see in Uptown Waterloo. It never has looked better. To the point at hand, Adam, with respect to the cycling community, we worked hard at the time to listen to the cycling community who participated in the design, along with a North American expert. And you'll find it online from 2015, essentially a demand from the cycling community to approve that cycle design, which was protected by cars, parked cars in front of it. And that's something that they actually wanted, and it was built as is. I think the real lesson here, Adam, is the fact that time marches on quite quickly, and we're developing such a cycling culture here that people are really excited for this, this facility, the cycling paths, yet their standards have grown higher than we had just 4 short years ago. So we've been monitoring that. We've been having our bylaw people cycle back and forth on it. And we've actually seen the number of offenses plummet. So I do believe people are learning, but this is something we're definitely going to keep our eye on because we want to make sure that Uptown Waterloo is welcoming to everyone.
Thanks. Chris?
I have no intention of putting any blocks or anything like that between the cars and the bikers. I think that we need to share our roads and our bike lanes together, and I think most people do that, right? I think that there's safety already in Uptown Waterloo, so I've got zero attention, or I won't be bothered with that. My concern again is about jobs, okay? And when I spoke to those Uptown businesses, they said that people aren't coming back. They forged relationships with these people coming in for 10 or 15 years, and because of the delays of LRT construction and because of the streetscape, they went other places, or they went to Amazon, and they actually lost business. Some of these retailers lost between 20 and 50% of their gross bottom line. And disgustingly enough, the city of Waterloo offered them a $180 business license after they lost thousands of dollars. So again, I agree with the biking community. We got to get out there. We got to get active. But I've got zero intention of separating them from the sidewalk.
Thanks, Chris. Kelly?
So I hear 2 issues that present here. One is about the streetscape in the Uptown, and the other is about protected bike lanes. And I think it is really important. We have a great Uptown, but we really need to look at how are we investing and how are we supporting those residents, and making sure that we are doing what we can to bring people into the Uptown, because that's how we are going to revitalize those businesses. When we talk about protected bike lanes, I'm a member of the Waterloo Advisory Committee on Active Transportation and had an opportunity at that table to talk about this project. And what was really important was that we needed to strike a balance, because we have all kinds of users who want to move about our city. We have people who walk, people who have accessibility considerations. We have people that use a variety of methods of motorized vehicles, from motorcycles to cars. And we really need to make sure that our city is at a place where we can welcome everybody in those different modes. The challenge I find with the cycling infrastructure in the Uptown is the lack of consistency. And so I was really excited when our advisory committee had a chance to meet with the advisory committees from Kitchener, Cambridge, and the region, because our success in cycling infrastructure in our city and in our region will be because it is consistent. If you travel down to Kitchener, a very similar look allows people to park in those spaces. And so as a motorist, it can get very confusing when you're driving down the street, and in some places you're not allowed to park, and then a couple of kilometers down the street that you are. So for me, we need consistency and alignment of our cycling infrastructure.
Thanks, Kelly. So the next question is back to Adam.
Across the city, developers continually ask for variances when it comes to their developments. When it comes to density bonusing and general benefits from these developers, do you feel the city gets its fair value? If not, what do you think the city should require of developers who ask for exceptions?
We'll start with you, Chris.
Well, like I said, the developers in our community, they do a tremendous job. When it comes to bonusing, that's debatable. It really depends on what's actually going to be used and utilized in that space. So that's something that we've got to discuss with the community. We have to see if it's actually worth it. If you're going to give these bonuses, like I said, at 70 King Street North, then we're going to see quite taller buildings, and we might not see these spaces actually utilized. So that's what it really comes down to. I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's something that I would be willing to discuss. And every situation is unique.
Thanks, Chris. Kelly?
So when I attended council on Monday evening, this was one of the items that was presented before council that felt a little bit like, again, that shiny object that was leading people down a path. And I think we need to step back and really look at what the value of the density bonusing is actually providing for our city. And is it allowing us to do the things that we want to do? And what, on the other end, are the consequences of that density bonusing? And I don't know that that has been fully realized yet. And so I think that the decisions made at council on Monday night were hasty and weren't fully vetted and should have been deferred so that we could fully realize what will be the benefits to our community and to our residents.
Thanks. And Dave?
Well, density bonusing is a new topic, certainly in the city of Waterloo. It's afforded by the Provincial Planning Act. So it's something that we've looked at only a few times, really. And we've used it for some good projects where a developer did not want extra height. They simply wanted extra density and wanted to maintain the existing height to create micro apartments, something that was much more affordable. And through that plan, the developer worked with the YWCA on their affordable housing project on Lincoln Road to actually donate $400,000 or $600,000 to it to help pay off that affordable housing, which creates spaces for families. So that's so important. So there are definitely community benefits that can be done in the local area, whether it be improvement to parks, enhanced architecture, different levels of programming, public art, and each one is looked at on its own merits. And I think we've only seen about 5 so far. It's unclear as to how many more we'll see, but we're coming up with a plan that helps us address them all and have a great conversation. All council decisions are made by all members of council, not by one person, and so we do have a very thoughtful discussion on these types of proposals by developers.
Thanks, Dave. Next question from Adam again.
One complaint that has been heard often is that there seems to be a disconnect between residents and the city of Waterloo. Do you agree with this statement? If so, how do you propose the city improve communication with the community?
And we'll start with Kelly.
Unfortunately, it is something that I've been hearing as I've been talking to residents, as I've been talking to businesses in our city. People feel disconnected. They feel that they haven't been heard. They feel that the information hasn't made it to them, and development after development, construction after construction, people feel that they have not been listened to. And that is the single most important point that is frustrating people in our city. And so as your mayor, I will make a commitment to sit and listen to you. I will show up and be present. It is more than just having photo opportunities and saying that you've been somewhere. It's about showing up and listening and making sure that you pay attention to the needs of the residents. Not the one, but the broad needs of our residents. We have a development up on Columbia Street, and I understand that's already been approved, but the residents are feeling that these five new apartment buildings are going to be erected, and they know nothing about that. And so they're saying, where was the communication? How come I wasn't informed? I've lived in this neighborhood for this long. And I've seen that. I was at council when there was a slide put up by a developer that said, I sent 12 letters in to staff and I have not yet heard back. And that was glossed over, and I thought, you know what? Mayor and council needs to sit back and listen and say, okay, if the community is saying that to us, then where is the breakdown in communication? Where do I as a mayor need to step up and say, you know what, we need to change it, our approach. We need to change our approach to one that is citizen-led and citizen-focused.
Thanks. And Dave?
Well, what we're doing at City Hall is certainly continuing to advance the ways of communication. We're looking at Twitter, Facebook, our new website, which is being developed, and as I mentioned in my opening comments, a new tool called Open City Hall, Engage Waterloo. This is something that we can put important questions out to the citizens, and they can get information. And I think it's definitely clear that there's always room for more communication from elected officials, but people also need to be receptive to it. Often we find that people aren't looking for information, and we've put it out in a number of places, and I think that is an area for an improvement as well. We certainly put everything out in the Waterloo Chronicle for people to read, something that's delivered to every home. And I think that's important, that people should pay attention to those pages in the Chronicle that have very detailed information. You find that in other pieces of media as well. So that's something that I, as mayor, take very seriously in terms of communication. And in a lot of cases, some of these items that have been talked about tonight actually date back years to 2008, 2005. So there's some things that just haven't been around, and some people have moved into the area and just are unaware of them. And so that's something I hope we can help out in the coming years to have more communication.
Thanks, Dave. And Chris?
So I absolutely agree. Since I started my campaign, I've spoken to thousands of people, and I've knocked on thousands of doors. And you see voter apathy. You see in the last election, only 36% of people actually came out, and they're not being listened to. See, I'm listening to them. I'm focused on actively listening. And the reason they're not coming out and they're not inspired is because the unions are holding our local government hostage, okay? They see their property taxes going up. They see their money being flushed down the drain, and they're saying, nobody's listening to me. And I agree wholeheartedly with Kelly. You know, I knocked at an old gentleman's door, and he said it took him 4 or 5 times to get a tree removed from his front lawn. Okay, the people at City Hall, they're unionized. Okay, there's no incentivization to actually try and do good work for the people of this community. So we need to curb the union interference at City Hall. That's something that I'm going to look at completely. But again, we have to actively listen to our constituents that basically keep our lights on and build the roads for people to succeed in it in this city.
Thanks, Chris. Next question, Adam.
Over the last number of years, there have been a number of developments where residents have battled against the size or shape of an incoming building. Specifically at 508 Beechwood Drive, where the developer is asking for a number of variances on a 12-story building, neighbors have rallied against it. There are 2 questions here. 1, how do you plan on dealing with this specific issue when it returns to council for an official public meeting? And 2, how do you plan on dealing with similar issues in the future and balance the need for intensification with the comfort of existing neighborhoods?
And we'll start with Dave.
Well, thank you very much, Adam. Those are important questions in community, and you raise an example of probably one of 12 key developments in our city of Waterloo that really are really questionable. We really have to look at really hard. It's difficult for me to comment on that because under the Planning Act, elected officials aren't supposed to comment until the formal public meeting, which you referred to, comes into the future. But I can refer in generalities to different developments to answer your second part of your question. Number 1 is we've created an urban design guideline that really helps enforce to the developers the kind of style that we're looking for now in Waterloo. I think a number of people can point to the Columbia and King area, the University District, of where development ran rampant a couple of mayoral terms ago. And that's something that we've implemented to stop. Second thing is staff worked with the developers to actually push back on them. But at the end of the day, Adam, whether a person wants to bring in a plan to build a 6-foot high fence or a 20-foot high fence, and they say, you know what, I really want to take that 20-foot high fence to council, we really have no choice but to look at it, even if we, in our hearts and minds, don't believe it. But we really have to wait till that formal public meeting. And I think you found that our term of council, we've probably pushed back on about 12 different developments, either at the informal level, where we host a special meeting where we get citizens out to let the developer hear what their thoughts are. And they can give their opinions at that point. And that often sends the developers back to the drawing table, thanks to citizens.
Thanks. Chris.
So listen, I believe in intensification, and I know that we're a growing community, and I know that we're going to need more housing units coming up on the market. You take the Beechwood project as an example. It's essentially like putting an industrial building in that area. You're going to destroy the spirit of the community. So it's not something that I would pass personally. Some of those residents have been there 20, 30, 40, 50 plus years, and they don't agree with it. Neither do I. But again, I still understand that we need intensification. I just don't like that particular project. It's not something that I would consider at all as your mayor. And I would respect the community's decision for that. So that's my answer. Thank you.
Thanks. And Kelly.
So I've been on the committee of council where we had an opportunity to comment on this development. And this development did not meet a lot of the kind of tick boxes of vision and goals that the city has in terms of crime prevention. Having a building that is so high with a brick wall does not promote visibility. It does not promote movement of people throughout that space. What I heard when I was at that council meeting, because I was there when 508 was presented, I went and talked to residents afterwards, and what I heard was they aren't opposed to densification or intensification. And for the most part, people aren't. They understand the value and the importance of density and intensifying in our city. But we need the right development at the right place and the right time. And that certainly was not a development that was going to meet the needs of that neighborhood or fit with the style and vision of that neighborhood. And so what people are saying is that they feel that they haven't been heard. And the leadership and the vision needs to come from mayor and council, and I don't think that we've seen that. We need neighborhoods with identity, with smart growth, and an integrated and clear vision. And that is what I promise to bring forward to the city of Waterloo as I move forward with becoming mayor.
Thank you. One more question?
The new provincial government has been described as challenging to work with and not forthcoming with information about programs and incentives that affect municipalities. How do you propose the city approaches communication with the new provincial government to ensure that our priorities are heard?
And Chris, we'll start with you.
So listen, I believe that we have fantastic representation locally. We've got a great voice that can vouch for us at Queen's Park. But we still got to talk to the government. We have to say that, you know, Kitchener-Waterloo is a great area to live, work, play, and invest in. So we always got to be on their radar. So we always got to invite them down. We got to have the voice at Queen's Park representing our interests. We got to talk to our local leaders. And those are the things that we got to do. I don't disagree, with the PC party getting elected. Some people might not like the leader, and that's fair at the end of the day. But he was elected to do certain items, and he's doing them. So again, it's all about getting the voice out and saying that Kitchener-Waterloo is an expanding economy. It's a great place to work, and that's continually what I'm going to do when I'm elected, is talk to the Ford government and say, hey, listen, come down here, don't be shy. Give us in your investment dollars, and you'll see the return.
Thanks. And Kelly?
So we have a provincial government in place right now that is making quick decisions, and they're wanting to see change. And so it is really important that we show up, that we participate in those discussions. We have an MPP in our area that we need to stand beside and support as we advocate for the needs of the residents of Waterloo. I understand that most recently, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario had an opportunity to meet with the mayors of our region. And I don't feel that our city was represented at that time, at that meeting. When I listened to the mayor of Kitchener talk on the radio about the questions that he was asked and the opportunities for discussion that he was allowed to be involved with, I kept thinking, where was our mayor? How were the needs of Waterloo residents represented during this pivotal time? We don't know what the change will hold, But what I do know is that if we're not there, and if we don't have a vision and a presence and the opportunity to have conversation and connection, then we might be passed along and not considered.
Thanks, Kelly. Dave, I'm going to offer you an opportunity for a rebuttal.
I'll just continue on into my
Okay.
my response. One thing that's key is that I have 15 years of government relations experience through being mayor, as well as my prior role at BlackBerry. And I think that's important because you know when it's important to advocate, and you know when it's important to listen. With a change in government, the first thing you do is contact them. And I think I mentioned it earlier that I'm very proud at City Hall that we actually have all 3 levels of government there. So it's very convenient for citizens, very convenient for the MP and MPP and myself to get together whenever needed, or our office staff. And I think one of the things that we really need to look at is advocating for our most vulnerable. We're seeing changes in those areas that at the regional level we had a report, and we figure that the cut so far will impact us by about $4 million. And that's something that we really need to take seriously. We need to look at how we're going to help our most vulnerable people. For my part, I actually have a great counselor, Councillor Freeman, who has sat on the AMO board, government relations experience, as well as a CAO, who certainly well represented us at AMO for the short meetings that were available. And I happen to have a conflict with the Waterloo Park 125th anniversary. So for my part, immediately after debriefing with them, we've invited key ministers as well as the Premier to spend a half a day in Waterloo, not just 15 minutes, but to come see what's in the water in Waterloo. We can show off and showcase our community and show what the impacts of potential investment in our community is. As I mentioned, 92% of taxes go to the federal and provincial government, and job one for the mayor is to repatriate those to our community.
Thanks, Dave. And we'll go back to Adam for one more question.
The City of Waterloo Parks Master Plan includes the removal of 2 baseball diamonds along Father David Bauer Drive in Waterloo Park. According to the plan, the diamonds will eventually be replaced with festival space. Do you agree with this move?
And we'll start with Kelly.
So I think it's important that we take this time to listen to our residents and really hear what they want and what they need from their community. We have a wonderful arts and culture scene in our city. And are we doing enough to support the arts and culture and support the festivals? And I would want to make sure that I hear from them to say, is this the festival space that you want? And is this the location that you want? Because I've talked to some people in the arts and culture industry and in our community, and they're telling me something a little differently, that they're actually looking for a different kind of venue, not an open air festival space, because one already exists more closer inside to the park. I've also heard from sports people who are interested in our baseball diamonds and interested in active sport. And I'm worried that we are going to remove something that perhaps the city wants and needs in place. So I would want to make sure that we have an inventory of what we currently have in the city and what is needed in order to sustain minor sports in our city, because we need to make sure that our kids and our youth have an opportunity to be active and engaged.
Thanks. Dave.
Well, thank you. You know, as a mayor, you're actively involved in many files, particularly key files where citizens have said we're keenly interested in this. And I do have good news from a standpoint of the baseball diamonds. There's something that, from my standpoint, I plan to keep. We've looked at it from many different ways at our council. We decided that before we could even address this, again, which is a 2008 Waterloo Park Master Plan item, that before we can even address this, we need to add baseball time in our community. We did that with T-ball in a couple of neighborhoods for the 5 to 8-year-olds. And then as we went to put extra lighting in our Rim Park area, we just found that the RFPs came back and they're completely unaffordable. So we're really stuck at that point. So what we found is there's certainly the Rib Fest, which has happened recently in Uptown in Waterloo Park, the Royal Medieval Fair, which takes place in Waterloo Park, but not on the baseball diamonds. That it looks like there's you know, room to grow. We still have to look at attracting more festivals, which would require us to hire staff, which would then are at a premium. We're very, very valuable staff. And just to correct Chris on one point, that the City Hall staff are not unionized, so that's something that's very important as well. We have a great working relationship with the staff. And so the guillotine is off the baseball diamonds as far as I'm concerned. We'll probably have to look at doing some improvements like we are to other baseball diamonds around the community. And we've added more soccer fields and other facilities as well, like the new adult rec center that we'll add in the near future.
Thanks.
I'm not going to give you a long-winded answer. I do agree with Dave. We got to get more kids playing out in the community, and not just kids, even adults, just to play pickup games and things like that. I think a festival space would be great, but we got to get people off cell phones. We got to get people talking, conversing, and playing, and just being active in the community overall. So on that part, I totally agree with Dave.
Thanks, Chris. So at this point now we'll start with the closing statements, and we're going to start with Dave.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you, Rogers, for this opportunity, and thank you to my colleagues for your passion here tonight. Over the last 4 years, I've used positive leadership to work hand in hand with council, our great city staff, our great volunteers, and hundreds of community groups that serve this community. I've hosted fundraising events for the Working Centre, our veterans, Kids Ability, Rotary Peace Scholarships, Supportive Housing of Waterloo, and the Hospice of Waterloo Region. And if you're on your computer tonight considering logging in and donating to these groups. We're adding to the arts and culture fabric of our neighborhood by adding the new Lumen Festival this fall uptown. Our uptown has never looked so good. The future is bright, and we have plenty of free parking on Regina Street. Looking forward to the next 4 years, I'll continue listening to your ideas at the 400 events that we attend together each and every year. I'm focused on building a vibrant Waterloo, a beautiful one, together that we can all be even more proud of. We're making the city more age-friendly with a new older adult recreation center that will also serve all age levels and the entire community with gym space, meeting rooms, and more. We're building an innovative East Side Library at Rim Park. We're rejuvenating Silver Lake at Waterloo Park, which many of you have told me needs to be done for many years. We're easing West Side congestion by extending Columbia Street all the way to Herb Street past Costco to ease the burden on the roundabouts. We'll be connecting our citywide trail system into super trails, and we'll be continuing our financially responsible approach. As mentioned earlier, I've invited key provincial ministers and the Premier to spend a day in Waterloo. On October 22nd, vote for experience and positive leadership by voting for Dave Jaworski. I appreciate your consideration.
Thanks, Dave. Chris.
I just want to say thank you to Rogers for hosting this debate tonight. Now, you've clearly heard from 3 different people, and you've clearly heard 3 different visions tonight. If you want higher property taxes, I'm not your guy, okay? If you want a Waterloo that continually has an assault on the car, okay, and on parking, I'm not your guy. I'm not here to reinvent the wheel, okay? This is a very car-dependent city, heavily reliant on the vehicle. So those are the things that I'm going to focus on. We need to reduce property taxes. We have to put more money on your table so you could actually make different decisions. You know, the kids could go play. So if you want lower property taxes, if you want full transparency and full honesty, vote Chris Kaletnik on October 22nd. Thank you.
Thanks. Kelly.
I too would like to thank Rogers for this opportunity and for your commitment to making sure that our election is covered well. It's one of the reasons why I ran, because I believe in our democratic process and that it is so important that we have choice as we enter this election. One thing that I'm positive about is that Waterloo needs new leadership. Waterloo has been treading water and in some places fallen behind. We have been underrepresented locally, provincially, and globally. It is not enough to show up for the photos. We need a mayor who is engaged. I don't believe in closed-door meetings or a corporate approach to community development. I am a grassroots leader and strongly believe that Waterloo can be better again by working together. Tonight we heard about tax increases, and I think we need to make sure that we're not relying on the convenience of municipal or other levels of government in our building, that we need to be active and engaged and reaching out. We talked about how we engage with our city and using BlackBerry and Twitter, but we also need to go beyond and make sure that we are meeting people in all kinds of ways, which is why I always talk about connect with Kelly. Because with me, you will have my ear, my voice, and my presence as we move along. We can be better. We can be a better city on our infrastructure, on our bicycle paths, and on our development projects. So on October 22nd, I ask for your vote so that we can work together for Waterloo.
Thanks, Kelly. So I'd like to thank you all for participating, and be sure to tune in on October 22nd for the up-to-the-minute results. Thank you and have a good night.